This past summer I was in the Met. The art museum's so expansive I spent 5 straight hours trying to see all the art I could and still failed. My strategy when entering into a new room was to scan each painting, spot the one I found particularly interesting, and devote my time to it. The art that always caught my eye first were the most famous or familiar pieces, or the ones I had just had prior exposure to in art history class. One of these works I had seen from high school was a portrait of a young King Philip IV of Spain by Diego Velázquez. It was an interesting sensation seeing the actual portrait after studying it on a smartboard. There's an aura around the original work, the history and the status associated with it. It's a powerful feeling unique to seeing it in person. Funnily enough, while exploring the Boston Museum of Fine Art, I happened across the exact same portrait of Philip. I was shocked, as I did not believe the coincidence. The Met and MFA must have moved it within the 3 months I'd visited the two museums. That very next week, at the Isabel Stewart Gardner Gallery, I came across Philip again for the 3rd time. I was initially surprised to find out these paintings had been replicants, but seeing the same portrait 3 separate times got me thinking about replication of art in our modern world. We see art everywhere, from calendars to mugs to socks. Anything that a piece can be printed onto, it probably will be. We all know somebody who curses this, thinking it's a blatant disregard for the sanctity of art, and it's another step closer to the demise of art or culture as we know it. But I'd argue this exposure to art only increases people's appreciation for it. Those who think that mass-producing art is bad think so because it devalues or depreciates the original. In 1935, the German philosopher Walter Benjamin wrote an essay analyzing the role of modern reproduction technology has on art. Quote, "That which withers in the age of mechanical reproduction is the aura of the work of art. This is a symptomatic process whose significance points beyond the realm of art. One might generalize by saying the technique of reproduction detaches the reproduced object from the domain of tradition. By making many reproductions, it substitutes a plurality of copies for a unique existence, and in permitting the reproduction to meet the beholder or listener in his own particular institution, it reactivates the object reproduced. These two processes lead to a tremendous shattering of the tradition which is obverse of the contemporary crisis and renewal of mankind." Unquote. Benjamin holds a reverence towards tradition. He thinks just because copies of a piece are made, the value of the original is somehow dampened. Would Benjamin argue that Velázquez devalued his own work by making several copies of it? Or what about the impressionist Paul Cézanne, who painted the same landscape hundreds of times throughout his career? Yes, a company reproduces for profit, but Velázquez did too. He was commissioned to paint those portraits. He did not just do it for the sheer love of King Philip. Cézanne, on the other hand, Cézanne was just crazy. But no single painting of Mont Sainte-Victoire devalues another. The replication of art serves only to expose more people to it. 90% of art people see is replicated. The images on our laptops, magazines, and tote bags are all duplicates. But when we go to a museum and we see the real deal hung aloft before us, we don't just think, psh, why did I waste my time and money going to a museum when I could have just Googled the pictures of art? No. When we go to museums, we marvel in the art. The size or eminence, the aura remains. The replication of art can be paralleled to the replication of literature. When Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press in the 14th century, he made books available to everyone, not just those rich enough to afford them. When the masses have access to new books, they have access to ideas that they can learn from and expand upon. The exact same is true of art. Why should only those few with access to art museums or galleries be able to enjoy art? When more people see it, enjoy it, learn from, and expand upon it, art becomes richer, more diverse, and more engrossing for all. I would not have given Philip's portrait a second look if I had not recognized it before. And when looking at it for the first time in person, I dedicated my time to appreciate it more so than just some other random picture. Thanks to technology and the allowance it gives us to replicate, expose ourselves, and familiarize ourselves with art, we can better enjoy it. Starry Night socks, Mona Lisa sweatshirts, and King Philip PowerPoint presentations exist, yet the power of their originals remain the same.